Hello my loves. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about all of the 12 books I read in the month of March. All right, let's start off with some stats. Like I said, I did read 12 books in the month of March with a total of 5,438 pages, 1 dark romance, 3 regular romance, 7 fantasy romances, and 1 YA mystery. I have a total of 1 5-star book, 9 4 stars, 2 3 stars, and 0 1 stars. Okay, the first 6 books I'm going to talk about are actually all part of a series. I managed to start and finish the Bonds That Tie series by J. Bree. I loved this series. I literally read the first 3 books in the span of like 3 days, took a little break, couldn't stop thinking about it, decided to just finish the series like a week later. I could not think of any other series. Every other book I started, I was like, oh my gosh, I wonder what's going on in the Bonds That Tie. Oh my gosh, I wonder how this series is going to complete. I just found myself literally constantly thinking about the series and wondering where the books were gonna go from there. In this world, everybody is born with a bond, which is similar to a mate of some sort, but some people are born with more than one bond. You can be born with up to 5 bonds, not including the person who is the central bond. They are the person that ties the entire bonded group together. There is the central bond, and then that central bond is born with either 1 to 5 other bonds that they can choose to either mate with, bond with, and complete that bond between the two of them. Upon completion, both bond members will unlock this way to speak to each other mentally with, like how mates speak to each other. And they also unlock the shared power. So every time your central bond gets a burst of power, that central bond can push you more power after you are bonded together. You don't necessarily have to complete your bond, but once you do, it unlocks your full potential for power and your full magical potential as well as theirs, and then everybody in the group unlocks their full potentials. This story follows Ali Fallows, who is actually on the run from her bonded group. She has 5 bonds: Knox, North, Griffin, Gabe, and Atlas. As far as age, you have North, then Knox, they are both brothers. Then we have Griffin, then we have Atlas, and then we have Gabe, which is the same age as our FMC, Ali. The book starts off with Ali being in this terrible accident, which leads to the death of her parents, and she kind of blames herself for that death, and she refuses to allow her powers to grow. So knowing that once you create that bond and once you finish that tie, that her powers were going to grow, she was afraid and therefore ran. That's only the first book. I can't really go into details of what happened in the other 5 books because obviously if I do, I'm going to spoil them for you. However, I really enjoyed the series. I rated every book individually as a 4 stars, but honestly, looking back on the series as a whole, as just a series, I would say the series was almost a 5-star series. It's not like an absolute work of art. It is a Kindle Unlimited story through and through, but it was so bingeable, so enjoyable. Every book ended on a cliffhanger. It was so good, and I found myself continuously thinking about it. Even though I wouldn't say it's absolute perfection, I am gonna say it had the ability to take up 90% of the space in my brain for an entire month. Next book I also read on my Kindle via Libby. This book is also a fantasy romance, and that is Bride by Ali Hazelwood. I really enjoyed this book. I really did. This book is a kind of vampires versus werewolf situation. The vampires and werewolves are attempting to make peace with each other by using an arranged marriage. So one of the vampires will move into werewolf territory to marry one of the werewolves, and one of the werewolves will move into vampire territory to marry one of the vampires. In order to make it fair, both parties have to come from higher up. We follow Misery and Lo. Misery is the daughter of the leader of the vampire coven, I guess, I don't know, leader of their council, and she is destined to marry the pack leader Lo. Lo is sending someone from his party to marry someone in the werewolf. We really don't pop in too much. I don't know who she's supposed to be marrying. However, we follow Lo and Misery, vampire and werewolf. So it's kind of like a forced proximity, arranged marriage kind of trope, but I really enjoyed it. There isn't really a ton of other things I can say about the series without potentially spoiling anything. I went into the book completely blind. The only thing I knew was that there was vampires in the book and there were werewolves in the book. I didn't know about the marriage situation until I actually got into the book. I Loved this book. I actually rated a 5 stars. I was gonna rate it a 4 stars, but I just found myself still thinking about the book after I had already finished and like looking up if there's gonna be a continuation. Are we gonna see this world again? Like, is this a potential interconnected standalone series? I swear, I literally finished Bride in one day. This was my introduction to Ali Hazelwood, but honestly, if this is how her books are gonna go in the future, I can definitely call myself a potential fan. Next on my list is Love Theoretically, and if I like that, I can honestly say that I like Ali Hazelwood, because that's 2, and I think that's enough for me. This book was literally so good. What an introduction into an author. The next book I read is The Kingmaker by Kennedy Ryan. This book follows Lennox and Maxim. Maxim is the son of the CEO of Cade Energy, and Cade Energy is attempting to lay a gas pipeline over sacred grounds. Maxim does not agree with these methods. He believes that we should be moving in a more clean energy way. At this protest, Lennox is speaking, and she gives this very moving and touching speech on how people that look like her are constantly being put last. Cade Energy is going to destroy these sacred grounds, all for a profit. After Lennox finishes giving her speech, the police tear gas the crowd and release dogs. Maxim, with his father, notices a dog on the way to Lennox that she does not see herself. He runs, he cuts the dog off, and takes a bite for her. Fast forward, the 2 ended up getting arrested for protesting. They are sitting in a cell together. Maxim finds this strange pull to her, this strange attraction, this connection, and he asks her how old she is, and she is 17. Fast forward, I believe it jumps 4 years later. This is where they have a second meet cute, and they are in a different city, and that same initial attraction is still there, only now Maxim feels more comfortable pursuing it because Lennox is of age. Love story happens, which that's not the problem. The love story was cute, whatever. However, the 3rd act breakup was literally like 40% of this book. I'm not even kidding. This is how far into the book the entire protest was happening, was this much of the book. This is how long the couple was together. This was the protest. This was how long they actually dated. This is where the 3rd act breakup starts. That's the 3rd act breakup. That's the breakup. I have never read a romance book that had such little romance. This was my first Kennedy Ryan book, and I've been told that she goes heavy into her subplot. But this was crazy. There was barely any romance. We went through a span of like 10 years of all of this personal life stuff that I just did not care about. And then there was some random plot twist that happens in the last chapter. I'm not even interested to continue the series to find out what happened in the plot twist. Honestly, the book started off so strong. But the second that we started forgetting that this book was a romance and started thinking that this book was some political book, which I just was not expecting. I was looking for a romance. At some point, I just was like, you know what? I don't care. I'm just skimming till they get back together. Next thing I know, I'm at the end of the book. I do love the cause that she had in the book. Don't get me wrong. It just wasn't necessarily what I was in the mood for. And it kind of disappointed me that I was reading more of a political book than I was a romance. I rated this book a generous 3 stars. I did enjoy the couple. I did enjoy their relationship. I just did not enjoy the fact that their relationship was literally like 2 weeks worth of time over the span of 4 years. And then we had a whole nother 10-year break before we got back together again. Will I continue the series? I am not sure. The next 2 books I read are from the same series. It is Priest and Sinner, and that is book 1 and 2 in the Priest series by Sierra Simone. Both of these I read on Kindle via my Libby. Both of these books are strictly written from a man's point of view, which these are the first books that I've ever read that were strictly written from the man's point of view, and I actually found myself really enjoying it. Priest follows Tyler Bell, who is a Catholic priest. One day, he is sitting in confessionals, and Poppy walks into the other side and starts to give her confession. This is her first time giving in a confession, and she just felt like she had to do it. Her confession was steamy. After she gave her confession, Tyler just felt like he had to see this girl. He had to meet this girl. So he runs out of the confessional, meets her, even though he knows it's wrong to do that. After he sees her, he realizes he just has to have her, only he can't because he has sworn to celibacy and he has taken a vow to the church. It continues on in a priest-flock relationship while Poppy's trying to navigate her faith and Tyler is just drooling over this woman. Then kind of turns into a forced proximity situation that has Tyler questioning whether or not he wants to continue to keep his vow to the church. Sinner follows Tyler's brother, Sean. Sean has this childhood best friend who has a little sister named Zenny. Zenny is about to become a nun and she wants to know what is there out there that she's going to be missing once she becomes a nun. She approaches Sean, who is actually her childhood crush, and says, you know, hey, it's me, Zenny. And basically is like, I want you to show me what I would be missing because I'm going nun in a month. And it kind of goes from there. I would say I enjoyed Sean's book a lot more than I enjoyed Tyler's book. I think Sean was more desperate, if that makes any sense. Like, I feel like he was pining for the woman more than Tyler was pining for his woman. And I just love a man on his knees begging for an ounce and a scrap of attention. Sean was like, I will crawl to you, actually. I rated Priest a 3.75 and I rated Sinner a 4.5 stars. Next book I read was Den of Vipers. This story follows Roxy. This was a reverse harem story following Riley as our FMC and the Vipers. That includes Ryder, Garrett, Diesel, and Kenzo. Roxy ends up moving in with the Vipers due to the fact that her father kind of sold her to him as a way to pay off his debts. Goes on to their story, as it always does. It wasn't the best reverse harem I've read. It seems like every other Why Choose you read. It didn't have anything that really stuck out to me that made it different from every other one that I've ever read. I just think these characters were kind of boring and the storyline, it was okay. I'm not going to tell you not to read it, but it was okay for me. I rated it a 3 stars and I probably won't ever read it again. Last book I read is The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This book is literally just Criminal Minds, but they're this unit of like 17 and 18-year-olds who are profilers. It is literally Criminal Minds, but YA. Then there's a underlining subplot that goes on as well that I can't really say much about, but I will say this book was very, very enjoyable. Super bingeable writing. I think I finished this in one sitting. The ending was the tiniest amount of predictable, but it did not feel so predictable in a way that I didn't want to finish it. It was only slightly predictable, and even then I was still off a little bit. And then there was a twist at the very end that I was not expecting at all whatsoever. I did really enjoy it though. I give this book a 4 out of 5 stars. I will definitely be continuing this series. I definitely also want to read her other series, The Inheritance Games. That wraps it up. We read 12 books, 6 of which were from the same series. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys again soon. Bye.